Good morning. A lot of people here today. But are there always this many people on First Friday? Why aren't there always this many people every day? Or First Saturday. First Saturday has like 8 people come to Mass tomorrow. I'm going to drag myself out of bed at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. There's going to be 8 people at Mass tomorrow. Make it 9. And also tomorrow I have a wedding in the afternoon at the cathedral, which tonight is the rehearsal, and so I've got this like debate going on inside of me. Do I drive to the cathedral for the rehearsal on a Friday afternoon to Buckhead? Don't really want to do that. They run a pretty tight ship at the cathedral, so I can probably get away with not going and then go for the wedding tomorrow. I remember one time having a conversation with Father Michael and Father Gorov, and saying that my version of hell would be a wedding reception. And then both of them were like, have you read Revelation? Because like heaven is basically a big wedding reception. I said, well, I don't mean like the real, like the Feast of the Lamb. That's not what I mean. I mean like the whole listening to the, awkward speeches of, the kind of intoxicated bridesmaid and best man, about the bride and groom, and just the awkwardness. Usually you go to a wedding reception, they're like, oh, Father, here, we got you a good table. Here's Grandma, who's 935 years old, and she's deaf, and we'll sit you next to Uncle Joe, and Uncle Joe's going to tell you why he left the church and why he doesn't like Catholicism anymore. And yeah, it's just like, but I have to remind myself when I go to weddings as a priest that I'm not there to be, my typical gloomy old man stuck inside of a 37-year-old body self, but rather to proclaim the joy of Christ, to proclaim the fact that, hey, a wedding is the image, marriage is the image of Christ loving his church. And that's one of the reasons why Jesus made marriage a sacrament, so that he can have this visible image on earth of people walking around to show the way that Christ loves the church. Now, not everybody is great. All of you married couples are excellent at that, at always providing that example of showing how Christ loves the church, and also of how the church is obedient to Christ. But when we think of marriage, when we think of a wedding, when we think of the feast, are we reminded of Christ's love, or do we just kind of think of the secular parts? So the scribes and Pharisees asked Jesus, "Hey, how come John the Baptist's disciples fast, our disciples fast, but yours don't?" And he said, because the guests can't fast while the bridegroom is present. And so similarly, right, that's why I remind myself, I go to a wedding, I gotta be nice. When they do the corny dances and all the white people get up and dance and they have no rhythm, and they do the same dances they've been doing for like 30 years, right? They do the dances that I was doing in middle school, at my middle school dances, right? They got the cha-cha slide. They got the chicken dance. They got I don't know, what's the new version of those? Electric slide and Macarena are certainly not the new versions of those. But yeah, they do those. But the whole point is everybody's happy, right? Everybody is, rejoicing. Everybody's celebrating this new union. And so Christ's point is saying, hey, look, there's no reason to fast. There's no reason to be gloomy. There's no reason to despair. There's no reason for anything but joy, because I'm the bridegroom. I'm here with you. I'm present to you. So rejoice, celebrate. And then, of course, we know he'll be gone. And so then there is time for fasting. There is time for mourning. So Ecclesiastes, there's a time for everything, right? A time to mourn, a time to weep, time to... Bob disappeared, didn't he? Oh, there he is. A time to turn, right? the birds. Um, yeah, see, look, not everybody's a new wineskin. Some of us, even though, like I said, we have 37-year-old bodies, we're a decrepit geriatric old man stuck inside. But even then we rejoice, right? We recognize that when we focus on the things of Christ, we can recognize the reasons for joy, the reasons for hope. Even when we acknowledge the sadness and the tragedy that exists around us in the world, when we acknowledge the brokenness of the world, we can say there's still time to rejoice. Time to mourn. We can mourn the brokenness of the world, but then we look to Christ and we say, well, it's all worth it. It's all worth it. It's all going to be okay. Not now. It's not all going to be okay here on this earth, but in heaven, it's all going to be okay. In fact, it's going to be way better than okay. It's going to be great. It's going to be perfect. Because we will be united to Christ. And there will be no time for mourning, but only for rejoicing. So let us pray and let us ask that God may make us more and more aware of those opportunities in our life, that we are to be joyful, that we are to rejoice in His goodness. And let us recognize also the times in which we are called to mourn and to fast, to do penance, but ultimately recognizing that that leads us to the joy of heaven.